Welcome to our Sunman-Dearborn Community Schools families, to our parents, to our students, and to our community. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I am happy to announce that the board approved our reentry plan on July 9th. More information and the presentation will be following my brief introduction here. I just want to thank everyone for their patience as we work through this. We're very excited to be welcoming back our students on Wednesday, August 5th. We're going to provide an environment that is as safe as we possibly can, and so that learning can take place with their friends, with their classmates, and with our staff. Just a reminder that this is a very fluid situation, and as our governor showed us back on July 1st when he created a new stage, 4.5, where some of the items listed in stage 5 move forward, but some of the items listed in stage 4 stay put. So as an example, we found out just a few days before stage 5 was supposed to commence that he was not going to allow groups of more than 250, and that's just one example of how this changes, and it changes quickly. So I'm recording this video to provide to you what the board approved on July 9th, knowing that there's nearly 4 weeks between now and the first day of school, and it could change. So please be patient with us as we continue to watch the data, to watch the cases, to look at the guidance from our State Department of Health and from our local Department of Health as well. So thank you again for taking the time to review this video. I'm happy to take this time to present the full reentry plan that was approved by the board on July 9th, 2020. Before I do that, I want to thank the board, the leadership team, the teachers, the school nurses, and our Dearborn County Health Officer, Dr. Leson, for their help through this process. So as a reminder and a little background information, the Department of Education, the Department of Health, released the in-class document on June 5th of 2020. The leadership team of principals, central office administrators began working through the document. Appendices were assigned, which we'll talk about, and we broke up into committees, worked with assistant principal, the athletic director, with coaches, school nurses to receive input. I had multiple meetings with the Dearborn County Health Officer, and then we presented our reentry plan and discussed it with our Sunman-Dearborn Educators Association. And as has been said before, we developed the plan based on 3 guiding principles. We are committed to the growth of the whole child intellectually, socially, and emotionally. We will maintain a safe and healthy environment. However, safety protocols cannot be so extensive as to damage the growth of the whole child, particularly socially and emotionally. We will be flexible and agile, as the introduction to the document proves. That the dynamics of COVID-19 are fast changing. We must be able to respond quickly and efficiently. I would like to talk about masks and face coverings. They are not required, however, they are strongly recommended that all of our staff and all of our students wear face coverings if they are able. I'd like to quote Dr. Box, the Executive Director of the Indiana State Department of Health, from a webinar on June 16th. She said the following: face coverings are the best way, along with social distancing, for you to protect your students, your staff, and your faculty. My mask protects you, and your mask protects me. This is the Commissioner, the Executive Director of the State Department of Health, saying that face coverings are the best way for a school to protect our students and our staff and our faculty. And we know it can be somewhat of a controversial issue. And understanding that, our hope is that we will have 3,700 students come to this building on August 5th wearing a mask if they're able. If we do this, we increase the chances of us not just returning to school, but staying in school. So I ask staff, please model healthy habits and wear a mask. Parents, please send your child to school with a mask. I want to show a little bit of data regarding masks. This is from the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation at covid19.healthdata.org, and this is of July 1st. This is the projection for August 5th 2020, the first day of school in Indiana, current projections is we will have nearly 500 cases a day of COVID-19 positive. If we all wear masks, it drops down to nearly 100. It goes from 481 to 117 by just wearing masks. Deaths drop from over 6 to below 3, from 6.13 to 2.5 by the first day of school if we just simply wear masks. So you can see the decrease, 76% decrease in estimated daily infections and a 59% decrease in daily deaths. So we encourage everyone to wear their mask. We hope you will all wear your mask. I will discuss attendance policies later, more thoroughly later in the presentation. Before I get into each of these sections, I would like to speak briefly about close contact and cohorts and kind of define what those mean. So we have been told by both the Ripley and Dearborn health officials and the State Department of Health that a close contact is someone within 6 feet or for 15 minutes or longer. So we're trying to limit that the best we can, that we will have very limited close contact. So an example is passing period at the high school, middle school. All the students will be out in the hallway at the high school, nearly 1,300, at the middle school, 900. We know that we really can't socially distance at lockers and in the hallway 6 feet. It's just not possible. So, but we also know that passing period is only 45 minutes. So that's not considered a close contact. So students will be next to each other through lockers. If they have their masks on, that will certainly help. But it's not considered a close contact because it's not for 15 minutes or longer. And the longer you're with somebody, the more the chances are that you could possibly spread. The second is cohorts, and you'll see throughout our protocols we have in place that we're trying to limit the number of people students are around. So as an example, if you're in a third grade classroom at Bright Elementary, you're going to use that same seating chart for your art class, for your music class, for your lunch table. You're going to sit around the same 4 or 5 kids that you do in the classroom. So if there is a COVID-19 positive, the number of students that have to stay home as a result is limited. It wouldn't even be the entire class. If we allowed all third graders to eat lunch, kind of where they eat lunch, or at a high school level, all the 300 that are in a shift at lunch, what we normally do, to interact, then we would not know who was near who, and it could potentially shut school down because so many kids would have to miss. So we're trying to do that cohorting so that you're around the same group of students most of the day. Now, it gets more difficult at the high school, middle school, but we are still doing things throughout our protocols to allow for that. So with that said, the attendance policies have been adjusted to allow for some additional excused absences if you have COVID-19 symptoms, have close contact, or are positive. I do want to reiterate, parents, please keep your home child if they're sick. I'll talk more about the attendance policies, but that's the biggest impact our parents can have on preventing the spread of COVID-19 is to keep your child home if they have symptoms or if they're sick. Same with staff. We'll talk more about that, but we will provide some additional paid time off for our staff than they normally get in normal years. But again, the biggest impact staff can have is to stay home when they're sick as well. We will have signage installed throughout the schools to remind students to practice social distancing and to use healthy practices. This is some examples of what some of these non-slip removable vinyl decals are going to look like. They're going to be on the floor. They're going to be on the walls. They're going to be posted outside different classrooms. This is the East Central High School Trojans, and the signage will look like each school will have their own theme to their mascot. So now I'd like to talk about each of the various appendices that are in the full document. First, regarding school and classroom cleaning, you can see that we will, all areas will receive enhanced cleaning and sanitizing, and it will be more frequent. Schools and classrooms, shared classroom equipment, playground equipment, office areas, school clinics, restrooms, physical education, locker rooms, etc. Dusty Burris, our Director of Student Support Services, is looking at the workload to determine if we need to hire additional first shift custodians, adjust some second shift to first shift, provide overtime, or possibly even contract some cleaning services out. So we're looking into that. Regarding transportation, you can see the protocols. Students are going to be given an assigned seat. We're going to socially distance as we can. We are going to require that they stay in their seat and face forward. Drivers are going to be trained on the symptoms, the risk to exposure, etc. We do recommend that PPE is worn and to wear them correctly, and that's going to be part of the training as well. We will disinfect buses after each route. And so what we're going to do with assigned seats is as students get on the bus at the beginning of the route, they're going to be spread out more. And then as they get closer to school, they're maybe a little bit closer together. We can't socially distance 6 feet apart on a school bus. We would have to triple our fleet. It's just not something that is we can do. It's just not feasible. So the student that's on the bus for 50 minutes will be further away. And then as we get closer to school, we're hoping that we'll limit that amount of time to only 10 or 15 minutes or less as they're close together as they get closer to the actual school building. I also want to encourage parents to bring their students to school. That's always an option. We'd like to encourage parents to do that as well. So regarding healthy practices for our students, in Appendix C, we have common areas listed for elementary and high school, middle school, and also classroom. So you can see the various protocols we have in place for our elementary common areas. Students are going to report directly to their classroom unless they're purchasing breakfast, and we'll talk more about that when we talk about the cafeteria procedures. We are going to create one-way traffic patterns as we can. Teachers are going to encourage social distancing. Restrooms will be limited capacity. Restroom breaks will be scheduled to avoid overcrowding. We're going to postpone any elective assemblies, field trips, large gatherings. Recess will alternate so we don't have too many students, and we'll disinfect equipment throughout the day. And we're going to purchase additional supplies so we have less shared supplies equipment. We're going to avoid or minimize sharing of electronic devices, toys, books, art supplies, etc. If students form a line, there'll be floor markings that will indicate the proper social distancing, and then furniture in common areas will be rearranged as needed. In terms of the classroom, we're going to have space increase between students and desks. We're going to, when we have small group instruction, we'll try to maintain the same small group for an extended amount of time so that we're not mixing small groups together and students are a little closer together during that time. Desks will face the same direction. We do have some students that use tables and teachers that use tables, so we'll try to stagger that the best we can and not face if possible, but it's not always possible. Students are going to ask me to remain seated and then wait to be called to come up to the teacher or the board so that we don't have multiple students crowding around a teacher's desk. When we have parties, we're going to require prepackaged food, and we would like to encourage everyone to use our cafeteria program for that. Students are allowed to bring their own water or water bottle. It needs to have a sealable lid on it. Students will take that home every day for sanitation. The drinking fountains will not be available. However, we do have bottle fillers that we will be using to refill students' water bottles. So with a high school and middle school, it's the same regarding the common areas. The only difference is they won't form a line at the middle school, high school, but you can see we're doing the same protocols at the high school and middle school we are at the elementary schools. And then in addition to that, the lunch periods are going to be extended at the middle school, high school to allow for more social distancing and reduced capacity. So it will actually be approximately 2 hours long during their lunch period. 30 minutes of that will be their lunch. The other 90 minutes will be instruction. A typical instruction is around 45 minutes. So during that additional time, it will allow us to provide social and emotional learning, instruction and curriculum for our high school, middle school students. It will allow us to do some mentoring, some career exploration, some possible digital citizenship. And we're also looking at a school-wide or grade level-wide book study as well during that time. And you can see the classroom, again, the same protocols in place at the high school, middle school, as the elementary schools as well. So for our staff, in terms of visitors, and in terms of staff and visitors, all teachers are going to be required to eat in their classroom. They can eat with no more than 3 together. We don't expect them to eat alone. However, we need them socially distant during that time. Again, that goes back to the cohort. So we don't want 12 teachers being in the lounge all together eating lunch, and then someone's COVID-19 positive, and then we find out we have 12 teachers out for 2 weeks. So we're trying to eliminate that. That's why we have that in place. We're also providing plexiglass barriers for anyone who interacts with visitors, administrative assistants, administrators. Let's say an administrator has to meet with a student because of a discipline issue, then they'll have that plexiglass barrier, and teachers will be provided one if they do request that. For visitors, other than parents, all other visitors have to have an appointment. We're not going to allow a vendor just to stop by to say hi. They need to schedule an appointment. Classroom visitors will only be those that are related to instruction, and they have to have prior approval from the principal. All visitors are going to self-screen prior to entering the building, and all visitors are required to wear a face mask. We're going to keep accurate records, as you see, with sign-in sheets for contact tracing. And then finally, any vendor deliveries we're going to try to do outside the school day if we can. So cafeteria, as I mentioned already, the high school, middle school will be extended the amount of time, but we have additional procedures as well. We're going to no self-serve food items, that's suspended. We're going to use napkins and disposable silverware provided directly by the staff. They will not receive their own. We are going to put plexiglass barriers at point of sale locations at the cash registers. In locations where students form a line, we'll have markings on the floor to help with social distancing. We will no longer be providing a share table, or food sharing won't be allowed. I would like to encourage easy school pay so we can limit our cash transaction. And to do that, we have waived the fee. There's a credit card fee that parents are charged. We are now absorbing that fee, so you will not pay a fee. We'll absorb that internally through our program to try to encourage parents to use the easy school pay. We're not going to permit visitors during breakfast and lunch, and school staff, food service staff will be required to wear personal protective equipment, PPE. So regarding the health protocols that we talked a little bit about regarding attendance, this is a list of the COVID-19 symptoms. And if you have any of these symptoms, your student or staff, that are not otherwise explained in you have another condition or a reason why you have a fever, etc., or you have a cough, then you must stay home from school. You cannot come to work or come to school if you exhibit these symptoms without an explanation. So again, if you have any of these symptoms that are not otherwise explained and documented, students are not permitted, and parents are to notify the office immediately. Staff are not permitted to report if they exhibit any of these symptoms that are not otherwise explained. Both students and staff are not permitted if a school member of the household is COVID-19 positive. So once you're excluded from school, we have protocols in place for returning to school. You can read about those in the full document, but we have protocols for if you were never tested. If you tested positive and you were symptomatic or asymptomatic, you tested negative but are symptomatic, or you've had close contact with a student or staff member. Again, parents are going to screen their students for the symptoms, and staff are going to self-screen as well. Everyone's required to do that every day. You're not permitted to come to school if you have any of those symptoms that are not otherwise explained. And in the document, it shows, and I encourage you to read the full document, what the protocols are. There's different protocols because we got new guidance recently in terms of how many hours you need to stay home or how many days with these various. So it's different for every case. So read through that. It's anywhere from 24 hours if it's documented for something else to 72 hours, or as long as 10 calendar days. And then some are up to 14 calendar days. So please take a moment to read through that. We will have a separate designated isolation space outside the clinic for COVID-19. You can see that it'll be separate from the nurse's clinic. It will be supervised by someone other than the school nurse. It'll be disinfected several times throughout the day. We'll have strict social distancing guidelines. If the student is ill, that staff member will walk them out of the building to their parents. and then parents will be responsible for immediate student pickup when a child has been excluded due to COVID-19 symptoms. We have several health protocols in place for preventive measures as well, including hand washing, sanitizer. Throughout the day, we will be giving hand washing during key times and regularly scheduled breaks, start of the school day, before you eat, after you use the restroom, blow your nose, cough, sneeze, after you use shared equipment. Again, the water fountains will not be utilized until further notice, so you're encouraged to bring up to 2 disposable bottles of water each day, or you can bring a filled reusable water bottle with a leak-proof seal labeled with the student's name on it, and then we will provide opportunities to refill that at our bottle filling station. As I stated, we do have additional excused absences for students who are COVID-19 have COVID-19 symptoms, are COVID-19 positive, or have been in contact with someone who is COVID-19 positive. In these situations, any COVID-19 related absence are outside the scope of the attendance policy in the student handbook. So we have certain attendance expectations in the handbook. You only get so many excused absences. COVID-19 are above and beyond that. So if it's 6 absences and you're already to 8 because you've been asked to stay home for 2 weeks because of COVID-19, that's above and beyond. So we don't want parents to be concerned about truancy issues, attendance issues, loss of credit, et cetera, due to COVID-19. We want to encourage you to keep your kid home. So these, again, are above and beyond the typical expectations for attendance. Other attendance issues will still be handled as the handbook allows, but not the COVID-19. For staff, we're going to provide up to 3 weeks of additional paid time off beyond what we currently give you. So that's for our staff member. And again, that's to encourage staff members who are sick to stay home or being quarantined because they may become COVID-19 positive to stay home. There's some additional federal law that has been enacted to allow for some protection for our employees as well. If you think you qualify for that, I urge you to contact central office. We can talk through it. It's called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And there's some opportunities so that staff members can have an extended amount of time off due to COVID-19 related issues and still receive their pay. And of course, we're trying to sort through all this, so we always reserve the right to look at a situation individually and make a determination. With special education, we have protocols and considerations in there regarding case conferences, medically fragile students, homebound services, special transportation, and therapy. Certainly, we are dedicated to providing our special needs and students with disabilities with a full array of services like we do. So those are not ignored due to the situation we're in. So we have an entire section regarding special education considerations. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the Online Academy in this presentation. There's a separate presentation on the Online Academy that I encourage our viewers to take a look at, and the online handbook the Online Academy handbook that was approved by the board on July 9th is also on there. I do want to just say 2 things. The Online Academy is not e-learning. We've all experienced e-learning in April and May, 3 days a week for about a half day to try to help our community and our families cope with everything that was going on. The Online Academy is going to be a robust and rigorous instructional model that parents can choose for their children, but they should expect to spend the same amount of time working on the Online Academy that they do in school. So it's going to be 5 or 6 hours a day plus homework, and it's going to be rigorous. So it's not going to be the same as e-learning. E-learning is an instructional model that we use when school is closed, either school-wide or corporation-wide, and it's typically on short notice. So the e-learning is usually 2 to 3 hours of work each day, depending on grade level. It's not as rigorous due to the fact that this was not a choice that any of our parents made, but something we had to do. So I just wanted to say that one thing about the Online Academy, and I do want to encourage everyone to go to the other presentation and view that if you're interested in the Online Academy. I'm very excited about moving forward with that. Appendix K is the co-curricular extracurricular procedures, and that is mostly taken out of the Department of Education, Department of Health, and ISSAA document that was released. But you can see that if you have any COVID-19 related symptoms, you're not permitted to take part. If you're positive, it triggers certain thresholds for mitigation strategies that we will be doing. Coaches are tracking the attendance and reporting back to school. We have specific protocols in place. That's in Appendix F that they will follow as well. And then we'll have post signage displaying symptoms to help educate our students. We have added a waiver to permit parents to transport their child to and from an athletic or extracurricular or co-curricular activity or contest. Students cannot transport themselves, and parents cannot transport other students. But if parents want to take them to the competition and take them back to limit the amount of time on the bus, they are able to do that. There's 3 phases. We're in phase 1 right now through the July 19th. Then we move into phase 2, which takes us to about a week into school, and then we move into phase 3. So as we move through these phases, the groups can be a little bit larger. We remove some of the limitations. Like in phase 1, we don't use locker rooms. Phase 2, we start using locker rooms, etc. And then the modification to the calendar was approved as well. So there's 2 weeks of fall break, and there's 2 weeks with fall break and spring break that we are now going to do e-learning. So October 5th through the 9th, Monday through Friday, we will have planned e-learning days. March 15th through 19th will be planned e-learning days. And we know that some staff and some students may be hoping to go on vacation, and we understand that. We're going to work with everyone to make this work. We're giving plenty of advance notice so our staff can publish the lessons ahead of time before they leave if they need to. Check in if they can during that week. Students, if they're out that week and it's published ahead of time, they can work ahead or they can make up the work when they return, and we'll give them time to do that. What happens by doing this is our last student day gets moved to May 11th, and that gives us 12 additional days that we can add to the end of the calendar if we have an extended closure. We will use e-learning days for snow makeup days. And then when we have an extended closure, we'll use both traditional and e-learning as a result to make up those days. So here's a calendar. I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but so what happens basically if we have an extended closure of up to 6 weeks, as an example, we will use Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday as e-learning like we did before, because that seemed to be a good balance for our parents. Because if we're dealing with a spike, you have to remember, if we're dealing with a spike, this is not planned e-learning. This is things that we may have to go to on short notice, where the governor may say on Friday, hey, effective Monday, schools are closed. When that happens, it's affecting businesses, it's affecting daycares, it's affecting all these other things. So we are not going to do 5 days of e-learning because we know that's a lot for our parents. So we're going to do 3 days again, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If we have 6 weeks of closure, either all together or a couple weeks of 3 or whatever, it could happen. There is no indication that the governor is going to waive the 180 required days of instruction. So that means of those 6 weeks, we've made up 18, 3 days a week of e-learning. Then we got to make up the other 12, that Monday and Friday. So this calendar would allow us to add those days of traditional instruction at the end and still get out prior to Memorial Day and before June 1st hits. So that's why we're doing that, to compact it so that we can get as many days of instruction as possible, so we are prepared and flexible and agile so we can adjust and add days to the end of the calendar without taking us into June. This is the letter of support from our medical director for the Dearborn County Health Department. In closing, I just want to remind everyone to go to our COVID-19 webpage. It's listed there. You can get a copy of this presentation, the video as well, the full reentry plan, more information about the Sunman-Dearborn Online Academy, including a separate video and then also a presentation and the handbook as well. And we have 2 submission forms for questions from a parent question submission form and a staff question submission form. Please submit your questions through those forms, and those will be used to create an FAQ. And finally, I just want to thank everyone for their patience, for their grace, but mostly just for your support of our schools. We know we play an important part for this community, and we take that very seriously. And we want to provide a safe environment for our staff and our students, but we know that we need to get back to school. We understand that, and we're working really hard to do that. So thank you for your support, and don't hesitate to reach out for any questions through that submission form. Take care.